गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। गनर शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। आज हम एक असेसमेंट लेंगे, विल टेक अ स्टॉक ऑफ चाइना's डिफेंस एंड एरोस्पेस कैपेबिलिटी with General Rajiv Narayanan. At the outset, let me welcome him. Rajiv, welcome back to Gunner Shot once again. And how
Thank you.
things, and today we are going to discuss a very, very, very interesting thing called China's defense and aerospace capability as a macro level. Your initial views, and then we'll take off.
Sir, at the outset, thank you. It's been a little while. It's an honor to be on your platform, sir. My view is Xi Jinping is a confused man. He's absolutely confused man. Why do I say so? When you look at the basic strategy which was enunciated way back in 85 by Deng Xiaoping of war zone campaign, that has not changed. So I'm not talking of the initial phase, no war, no peace, where they will continue to degrade your CNP. Actual combat when it starts. The first phase is EFSA, Elite Force and Sharp Arms, which entails the use of SSF and the rocket force. And what has he degraded today? Exactly these two. He needs to start the war. And I cannot find a more confused man than him. And as we progress in the discussion, it will become clear that where the problem lies. And when I look at it at a macro level, everything finally homes on to Xi Jinping. Emperor Xi and his follies and foibles, and everyone else around him really scared to bell the cat.
Yeah.
Who will tell him that what he wants maybe is not achievable?
Okay. Yeah, I think you made very important points. Kyunki, if you look at PLA is the only army, right, which has a rocket force as a separate arm. There's no other, the PLA RF. And that is supposed to win you battles. And that is not sharp enough, right? And it represents a complete, confusion at the highest level. Okay. Like what you said, what was the war zone campaign initially and to what they are now practicing is completely two different things. And if you look at the doctrines of PLA, just to highlight what you said, doctrines of PLA, the PLA doctrine lays a lot of stress on intelligentization and information and all that, and very little, focus on how to use the PLA, RF, the rocket force, right? So there's a dissonance there, and then the second dissonance, what you said, Xi Jinping has broken the continuity of the war zone concept completely. And why is this happening? Is a different story. Like you said, it is Xi Jinping's way of thinking and fighting and all that. But it is reflected in their overall capability. And that is what I would like you to go through with it, because you made a
Yes.
small presentation. And then we'll discuss back based on what we're going to talk. And for all viewers, we must say why we have chosen this subject. That's something which I want to put across. Everyone thinks that the PLA is a very strong force and one of the strongest armies and all that. What we're going to highlight today puts a big question mark on all those. Right? And the sources for this are either international in nature or Chinese. They are not self-created and they are backed by facts And these are published facts and recognized facts, right? And that's what General Narayanan is going to put across. And then we'll get back to a couple of points which we'll make at the end of the day.
So,
We can start whenever you want. You want the
first,
slides
we
on?
can start these slides.
Okay, right.
We'll assess what is its potential. It's quite confusing at the moment, indicating all points are indicating that its capabilities are not what it's touted to be. Next slides. Now, current status is very negative. Failure of missiles. Suspect nuclear submarine. We know what happened when the BRICS event was going on in South Africa. Very poor standard of defense equipment and MRO cover, including those sold abroad. Because all concentration has been to make more and more platforms, the same OEM is supposed to give you the spares for the maintenance, repair, and overhaul, which is not existing. You sacked the complete leadership of Rocket Force. You not only removed last year the leadership of SSF, you've restructured it into 3 separate arms. And you sacked 2 defense ministers of late. You sacked the aerospace industry leaders who are making all these platforms for you. Facing the impact today of the chip wars with the US and West, because you want to modernize and get in the new emerging and evolving technologies, you don't have chips equivalent capability. The 7 nanometer, 3 nanometer is not there. All that hype of what he said that we have made the 7 nanometer, when the phones came out, even their own people were very angry that this is ridiculous, this is nothing but. And the most telling case was last year, sometime in November, PLA took out an op-ed in PLA Daily. In PLA Daily. PLA
Yeah,
Daily is controlled by the CMC. And the crux of the op-ed was, we are not yet ready for war. And this was at the time when Xi Jinping had hyped up everything and that he are going to attack Taiwan and we are going.
Taiwan.
So let us look at step by step. Next.
Yeah, before you go to that, I want to highlight 2 things in this which you actually brought out. The first is, this op-ed which says that uh, they're not yet ready for war. And this was 6 months back. Okay, 6, 7 months back. Now, from then to now, what has happened? What has changed further? One is you've broken up the SSF completely, okay, which is a major reorg. And then you sacked the leadership. So you first said that you're not prepared for war. Then you sack your leadership, and then you sack your organization or you change your organization. So that puts a whole lot of focus on what the negative status of PLA is. And that is important, right? And yeah, if you go to the next slide.
Sir. So when you look at April 2022, when Nancy Pelosi came, immediately day after the visit, 11 Dongfeng 15 missiles were fired. The Dongfeng 15, which is actually a short range, about 750, 800 kilometers is the range, to threaten it. But lo and behold, 5 of them didn't go towards Taiwan. They went towards Japan and landed at in the EEZ of Okinawa, creating a diplomatic spat between Japan and. A couple of months late, about back, there was again, I think they must have gone for recalibrating their Dong 15 missiles. And from the East Coast, they were doing a test firing of Dongfeng missile, which was supposed to go into their North Sea. And lo and behold, that missile went and landed just west of Beijing. I don't know whether it fell in a developed area, whether it fell in a residential area, where it fell. The reports did not cover what. But just imagine, and again there is silence. You don't know about Dongfeng 15, whether it's going to work or not. And that is your major threat to the Indian forces, is Dongfeng 15. if and when the war starts. Latest अभी क्या हुआ 29 जून में, their famous space launch rocket Tiangong 3, they test launch किया उसको. Within couple of minutes, it just broke apart and fell down from short of its launch pad, and there was a huge roaring fire in the forest out there. You go back again last year, the famous report from which came out from the US of water-filled missiles of the rocket force and the poor CEP. And they have also taken out that the anti-ship DF-21B is overhyped and may give mathematical calculations why it will never hit. And that it is overhyped, that it is anti-ship and anti-ship. Coupled with that were reports which came out of dysfunctional silos, the new 300 odd silos that he is making, that the lid does not open properly. So that means all those old DF-5 missiles which they reports say he was planning to place out there, you can't place them out there. And both these reports were clubbed with the leaking of a lot of intelligence, which that ambassador in the US got sacked, though under the garb that he had an affair with some girl and he had fathered a child. But this could be more the case that he had leaked the information where every detail of the rocket force, their location, what weapons they have, how many launchers they have, what are their, like we called those military numbers, unit numbers, everything was given. And it is presumed that it is all these which led to the sacking of the rocket force leadership. But was this also that the SSF, which was supposed to control the communications and keep a track, is that the reason why they also broke apart? Because you have cyber, you have information, you have satellite information, you make it separate. But strategic support force is supposed to provide strategic communication to the theater commands with these assets, rocket force and others. Now, who's providing the communication? Who's overall in charge of the media, which is common to all the three? And latest is two defense ministers now. Of course, they had been taken out they were under investigation. Now, formally, in the third plenum, they have been sacked, removed, thrown out from the
Communist Party itself.
The Wei Fenghe, who was the earlier rocket force commander and made the defense minister, and Liu Shangfu, who actually is the, you could say, the protege of his blood brother, Shang Yujia. Shang Yujia, in between, they had said he is cooperating. He has always been part of the Armament Development Directorate. He is the one, when the restructuring was done in 2016, established the Equipment Directorate, when all the four were broken apart into 15, and established the Equipment Directorate. Wherever he had been, Li Shangfu has always been there with him, and he has handpicked him and brought here. So if Li Shangfu is under a cloud for corruption or whatever, where does that leave Zhang Yujia, who's supposed to be his blood brother, in the sense, though he's elder to him, that when their fathers were purged together, he was his only friend at that time. All the others had broken friendship, because if somebody had become friends, then the parents felt that their fathers would also get purged. So the missiles now have come into a big question mark. And my understanding has always been, it is all well on paper for Xi Jinping and the PRC to gloat that the world makes X number of platforms for any arm or service in a year, and we make 3 to 4 times that. I will explain it in the classic case of their Type 002 aircraft carrier, Shandong earlier. The faster you make, the more corners you cut,
Cut.
because
Yeah.
there are certain technical issues where you can't. Like if you're making something concrete, you need 15 days for the concrete to settle with
Settle.
daily watering. Otherwise, it will be brittle. It won't be hard. Now, if you cut corners and say within 7.5 days I have made the concrete, it will last only that long.
That
You'll
long.
be
Yeah.
next.
Yeah. Before you go, a few things which I want to put across, which from your slides only, that my inferences. You look at, after all, both of us are in the business of aerospace in IIT, and we understand the technologies behind it. Missiles going awry during Nancy Pelosi's visit, the DF-15 missile test, which took off somewhere and landed in the outskirts of Beijing, and then this Tiangong rocket again going haywire, it indicates that their propulsion systems are completely awry.
बिल्कुल.
That propulsion technology is big question mark.
So essentially, to the common man, I'll explain that the basic propulsion system for all this stays the same. To increase the range, you may have stage 1, stage 2,
Say to
stage 3.
yeah,
Basic propulsion system remains the same,
the same.
and the software decides to what use you are going to employ,
Put
whether
which,
the
yeah,
rocket is being used for launching something to space or it is a missile which is going to carry a warhead to strike. The propulsion system remains the same. Now here the propulsion system itself is coming into a question mark. And number two, the whole precision system, when you're making long range, there has to be a very accurate method of locating yourself in 4 dimensions: X, Y, Z, and time. X, Y, Z, and time. Time is very critical, because if time goes wrong, then maybe you will hit the missile at a
somewhere
wrong
else
time at a wrong place. This shows that the grid which they changed,
is also
2009
faulty.
onwards, they have started making their own grid from WGS 84, which is the international standard on all the GPS. That calculation is absolutely wonky.
Okay. Yeah,
So certain missiles go off to certain places. You really don't know. So
where
when you're
they'll go.
launching a missile, everybody will be having their fingers on their hands, legs, toes, everything crossed, even
Yeah.
their legs crossed and hands crossed. God knows where it
Yeah.
will go.
Yeah, and इसका जो प्रमाण है, there's the first two. When missiles don't go to your intended place, and when missiles, all over, there are too many actual physical occurrences where you start saying, okay, this could have happened only because of this, right? The second major point which you brought out, which I want to highlight to everyone, is regarding the leadership. What General Narayanan has highlighted here. Two defense ministers consecutively have been sacked permanently now. And those are the guys who made the rocket force what they are. Okay. At least supposed to have. And the third guy, Wang Yuzhia, right? Wang Yuzhia and Li Shangfu were the two vice chairmen of the CMC. And they are now sacked or under cloud. So just think that the CMC is today a one-man show by Xi Jinping, who is taking the wrong bets completely on technology.
He has one more person, Wang
जो भी है,
Xia, but won't he also be scared?
he will.
तो
We
मैं
can't take.
उसको
So you
ऑब्वियसली
look,
सर, वो तो डरेगा कि यार
डरेगा.
मैं कुछ
Yeah,
बोल दूं, जब ये निकल गए तो मैं किस खेत की मूली हूँ.
yeah.
And then
So
he replied
the
that,
point is that this ZMC today, I won't call it dysfunctional. I would call it misfunctional. Okay, it will not. It is incapable today of taking the right decisions at the right time. So there is a danger in this, and the danger is that uh, due to the incapability of being able to take the right decision, they might take a rash decision, and this is something which we need to uh,
understand. So at every
understand. Yeah,
level, We have
I-
always taught, like in our army also, the art of military decision making,
yes,
wherein the staff officers do all that, give out all the pros and cons. The commander listens to everything. He has also read what all has happened. And then after that, he comes and arrives at his decision and makes a cogent decision based on all the pros and cons, all that have understood. यहाँ कौन बताएगा उसको pros and cons?
yeah, I think so. I think this is the major point which people have to understand,
So
that it is not the
this
dysfunctionality is not of the equipment alone, the dysfunctionality is of the system as a whole, right? So I'll go to the next slide of yours. Yeah.
yes. No, submarine तो वो सिंक हो गया था, nuclear submarine. Till date, they have not accepted, though unke, when you track their X, you get to know that 51 people died, except for one poor chap who was lucky because he was sent out through the torpedo tube to go out and see what has happened
What is happening? And he survived.
and go up. If you find a problem, go up to the nearest ship to ask for help. He went there, but by the time they came, they were all dead. And yet, till today, they have not accepted. Now, the issues that are coming out of the defense industry, and I'll relate it directly to our neighbor next door because it impacts us directly. There is a very poor MRO cover. MRO means maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Weapons equipment focuses more and more on newer platforms, less on sustenance of the fleet. So आप नए प्लेटफॉर्म्स बनाते जाओ, आप ग्लोट करोगे कि US can make only 3 ships or 4 ships in a year, I make 10. The uh, people have to understand that US is not some andi-fundy country. If it is taking able to make 3 or 4 big naval ships in a year, there has to be some technical
Logic.
timelines which need to be followed. If you're going to more than double that and then say I make 10, how many corners are you cutting? China is no USA. China is no USA. So how many corners are you cutting? Now, iska direct example I will give from Pakistan. When we brought in the T-90, this chap jumped to the Chinese and they brought in their Al-Khalid tanks. Sorry, T-72s we had brought in. They brought in their Al-Khalid tanks. The new T-72s we had brought, which came with the laser rangefinder. The first one was with the stereoscopic rangefinder, laser rangefinder. Al-Khalid. Now, Al-Khalid, everybody knew, was a dud tank. Type 90, which the PLA had said no, and he tried to palm it off to the Saudis. So in their name, king's name, they called it Al-Khalid. As we went and brought in T-90 and our armored corps was expanding, he was feeling the pinch. So what did he do? Did he make more Al-Khalids, whom they kept saying is the world's best tank, best tank? No. He went to Poland and bought over 200 refurbished T-55 tanks. And he still has the link from Poland for getting the space, from Poland and Czech Republic to get the space for. That is how he's sustaining. If Al-Khalid was so darn good, he would have bought that. He got the first lot of the WZ, their ICVs. वो वैसे ही है. To make up for the ICVs, since our mechanized infantry was increasing, he wanted to make his armored infantry battalion. He went to Czech Republic and Romania and bought old refurbished M113s. Most of his JF-17s are grounded. We'll come to that later.
Yeah.
We'll go to that slide. So, because so much of platforms are coming in, there is very poor absorption of technology in the soldiers because he doesn't have trainers to train them. That is why he is poaching from the West and trying to get trainers to train his people. Absorption of technology is not there. So we have in their push to meet their targets and keep Emperor Ji happy, They keep cutting corners. Who's going to tell them? The most brilliant case, Pakistan ka bhi mat dekho. If their number 2 aircraft carrier, which I had mentioned about, Shandong, 2013, the keel was laid. Normally takes about 8 to 10 years to make your full aircraft carrier fully operational. 6 years, 2019, handed over. जिस दिन से हैंड ओवर हुआ है, जहां पे बना था डालियान में, थोड़ी देर के लिए निकलता है और डालियान शिपयार्ड में ही रीफिट, अपग्रेड, रिपेयर में रहता है. तब से it came out once earlier for a trip, went back, came out last year for that supposed blockade of Taiwan because Tsai Ing-wen had gone to the USA. वो किया 3 दिन, 72 hours, बैक इन डाल दिया. ये हालत है इसके नंबर 2. और नंबर 3 का बोलता मैंने कील डाल दिया, अभी ट्रायल कर रहा हूं. वो बीच में उसके तो रिपोर्ट्स भी आए थे वेयर द डेक had completely torn apart. I really don't know where he is. JF-17 का क्या प्रॉब्लम है? बिगेस्ट प्रॉब्लम. Russia refused to give him the engines. They are using theirs. It is a guzzler, so it's a very short fuel time. Flight time बहुत कम है. टारगेटिंग सिस्टम बिल्कुल जिंक्स्ड है. वो मिसाइल वाला ही डाला होगा. So it is inaccurate. Radars are unreliable. वो तो हमने देख लिया जब हमारा मिसफायर करके वो हमारा ये फायर हो गया था ब्रह्मोस एयरफोर्स से. उनको तो पता लगा जब गिरा नीचे. उसके पहले तो पता ही नहीं लगा था कि भाई साहब ये हो गया. अनरिलायबल है. लिमिटेड कैरिंग कैपेसिटी. It cannot lift up that much of load because it is totally underpowered. So he has to always make a fine balance between fuel and weapon load. Maintenance का तो प्रॉब्लम है, स्पेयर्स आता नहीं है वहां से. मेन कंप्यूटर्स ही कांट रिलाई ऑन, इट हैज टू गो मैनुअल. और इक्विपमेंट उसका फेल होता रहता है. वहां से चाइना से कुछ नहीं आ रहा है बिकॉज चाइना इज बिजी वांटिंग टू अपग्रेड हिज ओन फ्लीट. So where is what happens to Pak military now? This would be also one of the reasons in his calculus why he has left China and gone into the lap of USA
again.
again. ये भाई साहब बचा लो मेरे को.
बचा लो. और ये पिछले 3 साल से नहीं पिछले 3 साल से जा रहा है कि भाई मेरे को ले लो वापस ले लो. And the Praman is that today infantry, the American and the Pakistani infantry are carrying out a 2-week training capsule in Pakistan. At 2 different locations. Okay. Yeah.
तो ये हालत है कि अरे there have been so many reports of equipment sent to various places have all gone defunct.
Yeah. Bangladesh has a problem. Nigeria has a problem with JF-17s. Bangladesh has a problem with the submarines. And anywhere else. And many other places.
You find that their equipment, when I was researching, and I mentioned it in the book also, like we said, sir, sustenance. PLAF. I'll give the example of PLAF because that report came out about PLAF. We have a separate MRO sustenance channel for the rotables and everything, separate depot from where you place your demand and everything comes. They have nothing. Most of their new generation fighters, which they are giving to their brigades, air brigades, if the fighting squadron has 12, they give them 16 aircrafts. And you use 12 and the other 4 are given for cannibalization. How can you fight wars with cannibalization? You cannot fight wars. So this is the problem which I was saying, the point 3 which I had made, that Xi Jinping has given a target. Nobody has sat down to assess that are those targets practically achievable or
not.
Nobody is ready to go and bell the cat and tell Xi because you don't know what will happen to you and your extended family.
Yeah.
So they are busy cutting corners. Let him be happy, because I feel they are very clear that in this coming decade or two, there's going to be no war. They feel that there is going to be no war. My time is over. I will push away.
Yeah,
And I'm sure they would have made all the money and and had their now uh, bought houses and other things in Australia or Canada or someplace and just run away out there. Having learned the lesson of Jack Ma and all these people,
yeah,
Li Shangfu couldn't do anything. Wei Fanghe had a chance to go away. He didn't go. I'm thinking now, I feel the others, moment they finish their tenure, are just going to push off
yeah,
to another country and not stay back.
yep. And it is what you're saying is underlined by the fact the latest rise in China is of Hawala banks, incidentally.
बिल्कुल
The the
बिल्कुल
Hawala system is
बिकॉज नॉर्मल सिस्टम तो बंद कर दिया है, तो
बंद कर
हवाला
दिया
सिस्टम तो चाहिए पैसा वहां भेजने के लिए.
चाहिए. Yeah, right. So, and
And
actually
they
this
may
also
not buy it in their names, they might buy it in their kids' names.
kids' names naturally. And the second thing of this, an extension of this is today there's lot Chinese experts and the government people, they can't travel abroad. Their children also are not being allowed to travel
Allowed
abroad.
to do.
That's all being controlled. So you're looking at one thing leading to the other. It is just not the industry which is at stake. I think the whole system is at stake. Okay. And this also brings me to one more point, maybe we could comment before we go further, is that in such kind of conditions, what is this business of Sino-Pak collusion which can take place? What's the level which can take place?
I don't
Because
know. That's why I
Pakistan is
put
jumping
that
ship.
last point, whether Pak military.
Why?
Pak military will be shit scared at this time, because F-16 तो वैसे ही डब्बा हो गया है,
डब्बा हो
और जो
गया.
मिला उसको वही डब्बा था. नया जो मिला JF-17 तो वो भी डब्बा है. तो लड़ेगा तो किसके साथ लड़ेगा, क्या लेके लड़ेगा? What will
Yeah.
he fight with? How will
So
he sustain himself?
how will he sustain himself? So and what General Narayanan said earlier, that look, Pakistan has run away, is actually in a way running away from China and running back into the American lap. So in such kind of a condition, this business of what we talk of two-front war and all that are all,
So his
dead and gone.
concentration is totally on the Western front
Western
today.
side. Yeah. It's not only, I mean, I'll put it this way, Rajiv. It, Pakistan is now concentrated completely on the Western front. China is completely concentrated on the Philippines front,
बिल्कुल.
and his thing is outward. And with whatever he has done, Taiwan and Japan have also got armed themselves. And the new developments which are happening in the Korean Peninsula, his fixation is that side and not this side, right?
And so only threat that I see more and more coming are use of non-state actors.
Yes, non-state actors and hybrid war is what we need
That is
to
what will come
we
from
need
both sides.
both sides. Yeah. Okay.
So
And yeah.
basic points ये है. Has the reality come to bite she? And that is why he tried to make a statement. A rabid warmonger who kept telling he'll attack Taiwan and wanting to crush it, now shifting goalposts, trying to blame USA, stating that it is USA which is pushing PRC to attack Taiwan. Or is it a smokescreen he wants to put to gain some time? Because you may blame anybody, but you, man, at every stage, he was the one who was saying, everything was on the table. I will attack you. I will crush you. Anybody not looking at one China policy will crush you, will defeat you. Now, what has happened? Has the reality come to bite you? That all this was hogwash. Now, does it mean if he can't go that side, will he try to come on the LAC? Well, good luck to him if he tries.
Yeah.
Or will he lash out further against the shadows within? Because जितने थे सबको तो साइडलाइन कर दिया, और कितने shadows बचे हैं तुम्हारे CPC में? How the mighty have fallen. कहाँ G2 की बात कर रहा था और कहाँ अपने आप को अब बोलता है I'm part of developed South. From where to where the collapsing dream? And how long will the CPC accept this? Because this is the descent of his PRC, not just into chaos, it is going into nothingness. Because this will depend on his future course of action. Karega kya wo? And economically, you have pointed out so many times in your talks yourself, he's in total shambles.
Yeah.
And
On that, there are no doubt.
look at the fronts that he has opened. Can he sustain this deployment along the LAC and whatever actions he is doing along his eastern seaboard? How long can he economically sustain that?
Yeah.
So
Actually, if you look at it,
where is he taking? When will CPC decide that enough is enough and purge him? Today, I read the report that he is already very angry with the handpicked PM that he brought, Li Qiang.
Li Qiang,
Because in
yes.
the plenum, he gave the reality of the economy. Where they are. अब उसके
Not only
handpicked बंदों को ही उठा के
not only
निकालता है.
that, the number of purges which are going on in China are actually unprecedented. In the first 6 months of this year, he's carried out more purges than she carried out ever.
So I will add to that, when the news comes that he's purged X, it is not just X which gets purged.
He's
X
purged.
के साथ उसका जो इमीडिएट पर्सनल स्टाफ होता है, उसके स्टाफ ऑफिसर्स जो हैंडपिक्ड आए हुए हैं, उनके फैमिलीज होते हैं, एक्सटेंडेड फैमिलीज होते हैं, everybody gets impacted. So just imagine, and there were reports which came out on the social media, X में ही आया था, where veterans have come out and surrounded the Beijing headquarters, that PLA headquarters, that they're not getting any of their pension.
Pensions, yes.
जो उनको पेंशन लंप सम में मिलता था, this man in around 2020 said you will not get lump sum, you will get monthly.
And that also
they're not getting.
Yeah.
So this tells you the condition of the economy.
It tells you the condition of China overall.
And poor people have come from all over the states and come there to PLA ki bhaiya kya hai, the previous system was better, and he tried to cover up the previous system कि पैसे नहीं थे तो मंथली देंगे, अब मंथली भी नहीं आ रहे. अभी वो कह रहे हैं मंथली जो देंगे they will get only 50%.
Yeah, I think overall when you look at China, what emerges is the same things which we keep talking of, that the PLA doesn't have the manpower to undertake any major operation. They don't have the leadership to undertake any operation, right? They don't have the equipment which is reliable to see you through a war. Their organizations are completely changing. Every second day, Xi Jinping breaks an organization and recreates a new one, which means that it cannot fight, because ultimately no new organization immediately goes into a fight.
When you create a new organization, it takes time to stabilize.
Yeah.
For people to understand.
Yeah.
And others to understand कि अच्छा इसको इस तरह से करना है, वो समझ में आने से पहले ही आप निकाल
वो तो बंद कर देते हो. And of course, the last problem is every day the role of the PLA itself keeps changing. इसने करना क्या? Okay. So as a result,
अंदाजा लगा लो सर, you want them to fight in high altitude and super high altitude. You have no concept of acclimatization. You're sending them with oxygen bottles. And then when they come down, you're proudly showing a video on their, I was watching it on their CNN, China Mill
CGTN.
No, it's a China Mill military website.
Okay, yeah.
They are showing that once their people come after the patrol, they come back with their oxygen cylinders. They are kept in an oxygen room with proper oxygen mask, and the doctor comes and checks them, and then they declared fit, and then they go. That we are taking care of our soldiers. And a couple of days later in X, I was watching, these people were aghast, the Chinese, where they show video shots of our people doing yoga, playing cricket, playing volleyball. And these people, he says, they are doing it at high altitude and doing all this. Are people going with oxygen bottle and staying and then coming down and staying in pressurized tents and God knows what all? How do you fight with these people who are used to fighting in high altitude? Now, this is the question the common man in China is asking.
Hmm.
How do you
More than
fight these
that,
people in high
yeah.
altitude who are used to high altitude with our people who are not used to it and who need oxygen bottles to survive?
And that too 5,000 miles away.
Yes. And because they are most worried, one bullet in the oxygen bottle, there'll be nothing left of the man.
Nothing left. And the chances of a bullet hitting an oxygen bottle are higher for the
Very
simple
high.
reason it's exposed, right?
Very high.
And that's
So
where it is. So,
it's
I
a very
think we put a
confused sort of a thing that Xi Jinping, he doesn't know. Firstly, let us be clear. All those who have been with him have always said in all the reports that I have read that he was a very average to below average student.
yes,
Other only thing positive about him is once he is very obstinate. Once he puts a mind and says कि मैंने ऐसा करना है, come
वो
hell or
करेगा,
high water, whether he is going to sink or drown, he will do that.
do it.
He will not listen to anybody. And you can see it clearly what has happened to the PLA.
I think that's where we need to leave it today with the message to everyone that the PLA is not what it is made out on paper. There are a lot of holes. Whether you take equipment, you take manpower, you take their organizations, you take uh, their way of thinking and their way of fighting. We shouldn't to get too worried about the PLA in the long run. We now have a good handle of what PLA is all about. The importance of why we are talking all this is this. If you go back in time in 2020, we were not sure of what the PLA was. People in India had not studied PLA the way it should be studied. Today, things have changed. Over the past 4 years, I generally see a lot of people have a lot of knowledge about the PLA and increased knowledge about China. The Indian Army and the Indian Armed Forces institutionally have learned more. You learn more by contact, and that contact came from Eastern Ladakh, Doklam, what happened in Yangtze. Now we have very got a clear idea of what the PLA capability and the culpability is. More about the culpability, and that is why you see uh, India, which is more strategically confident. And for the simple thing that if Prime Minister Modi could show two fingers to Xi Jinping at the by not even looking at the HCO summit and not even doing a video address out there. This was requested by the Kazakh president, and we didn't even he didn't Prime Minister didn't have time for that. Indicates the kind of confidence which India has to develop today as a whole. I think this is what I had to summarize. If you have anything else to
Yeah,
summarize,
I
otherwise I'll
will
take a
just
few
add to the
questions.
point
Yeah,
that you said how you get to know from contact. I won't give my source. You remember, sir, post Galwan, then when it got activated, we went up the what was that ridge line?
Kailash Range.
Kailash range. We beat them to it. They were slow. It is on record
Yeah,
that the CMC through the Xi Jinping through the Western Theatre Commander gave a direct order to that combined arms brigade commander to go up the Kailash range and evict the
Indians.
Indians from there. And that chap said that this man doesn't know whom we are facing.
Hmm.
I refuse to go on a suicide mission, his words. Now, what has happened to him thereafter, I
We
don't
don't
know.
know.
Because these didn't come out in public. This has come from the sources within the military. I won't give names. Who said, sir, this is the fear that those people have had post Galwan. That this is not some riffraff that you're up against. They will thrash the daylights out of you. And after that, they learnt their lesson in Yangtze again. And subsequent to that, you find Sannata hai.
Up to Sannata
It's
hai. Yeah,
only
that's the
it's only
main thing.
पीछे से शोर शराबा है, एलआईसी पे सन्नाटा है, डरे पड़े हैं।
And no, the another thing which people normally miss out. I want to just underline what you're saying. PLA makes big noises against Philippines, Taiwan, and Japan and all. It stopped making noises against India. You have to totally, right? And I think that is something which people have to understand. And I think with this, we'll take a few questions and we'll, right?